The Ryder Cup is a biennial men's golf competition between teams from Europe and the United States. The competition is contested every 2 years, with the venue alternating between courses in the United States and Europe. The Ryder Cup is named after the English businessman Samuel Ryder, who donated the trophy. The event is jointly administered by the PGA of America and Ryder Cup Europe, the latter a joint venture of the PGA European Tour, the PGA of Great Britain and Ireland, and the PGA of Europe. Silversmith Thomas Light became an official supplier of Ryder Cup trophies and awards in 2008, including 2/3 size replicas of the trophy, awarded to the players and management of the team. Originally contested between Great Britain and the United States, the first official Ryder Cup took place in 1927 at Worcester Country Club, in Massachusetts, U.S. The home team won the first 5 contests, but with the competition's resumption after the Second World War, repeated American dominance eventually led to a decision to extend the representation of Great Britain and Ireland to include continental Europe. From 1979, the inclusion of continental European golfers was partly prompted by the success of a new generation of Spanish golfers, led by Seve Ballesteros and Antonio Garrido. In 1973, the official title of the British team had been changed from Great Britain to Great Britain and Ireland, but this was simply a change of name to reflect the fact that golfers from the Republic of Ireland had been playing in the Great Britain Ryder Cup team since 1953, while Northern Irish players had competed since 1947. Since 1979, Europe has won 10 times outright and retained the cup once in a tied match, with 7 American wins over this period. In addition to players from Great Britain and Ireland, the European team has included players from Belgium, Denmark, France, Germany, Italy, Spain and Sweden. The Ryder Cup and its counterpart, the President's Cup, remain exceptions within the world of professional sports because the players receive no prize money despite the contests being high-profile events that bring in large amounts of money in television and sponsorship revenue. The current holders are Europe, who won for the 3rd successive time at the Gleneagles Hotel in Perth, and AMP Kinross, Scotland in 2014. The 2016 Ryder Cup will be at Hazeltine National Golf Club in Chaska, Minnesota from September 30th to October 2nd. Founding of the Cup. On September 27, 1920, Golf Illustrated wrote a letter to the Professional Golfers Association of America with a suggestion that a team of 12 to 20 American professionals be chosen to play in the 1921 British Open, to be financed by popular subscription. At that time, no American golfer had won the British Open. The idea was that of James D. Harnett, who worked for the magazine. The PGA of America made a positive reply, and the idea was announced in the November 1920 issue. The fund was called the British Open Championship Fund. By the next spring, the idea had been firmed up. A team of 12 would be chosen, who would sail in time to play a warm-up tournament at Gleneagles prior to the British Open at St. Andrews. 2 weeks later, the team of 12 was chosen by PGA President George Sargent and PGA Secretary Alec Peary, with the assistance of USGA Vice President Robert Gardner. A team of 11 sailed from New York on the RMS Aquitania on May 24, 1921, together with James Harnett. Harry Hampton deciding at the last minute that he could not travel. The idea for a 12-a-side international match between the American and Great Britain professionals was reported in the Times on May 17, with James Douglas Edgar being reported as the probable 12th player. Edgar was already in the United Kingdom. The match would be played at Gleneagles on Monday, June 6, the day before the start of the 1,000 guinea tournament. With Jim Barnes indisposed, the match eventually became a 10-a-side contest, Edgar not being required for the American team. The match consisted of 5 foursomes in the morning and 10 singles in the afternoon, played on the King's Course. The match was won by Great Britain by 9 matches to 3 matches being halved. The British team was George Duncan, James Braid, Arthur Havers, Abe Mitchell, James Ockenden, Ted Ray, James Sherlock, J. H. Taylor, Josh Taylor, and Harry Varden. The American team was Emmett French, Clarence Hackney, Walter Hagen, Charles Hoffner, Jock Hutchison, Tom Kerrigan, George McLean, Fred McLeod, Bill Mellon, and Wilfred Reed. Gold medals were presented by the Duchesses of Atholl to each member of the teams at the conclusion of the Glasgow Herald tournament on Saturday afternoon. The medals had on one side crossed flags, the Union Jack and stars and stripes surmounted by the inscription "For Britain" or "For America" as the case may be, and on the other side, "America v Britain, first international golf match at the Glasgow Herald tournament, Gleneagles, June 6, 1921. After the Glasgow Herald tournament, most of the American team travelled to St Andrews to practice for the British Open, for which qualifying began on June 20. However, Walter Hagen and Jock Hutchison played in a tournament at Kinghorn on June 14 and 15. Hagen had a poor first round and didn't turn up for the second day. Hutchison scored 74 and 64 and took the £50 first prize. At St Andrews, Hutchison led the qualifying and then won the Open itself. So, despite losing the international match, the American team achieved its main objective, winning the British Open. A match between American and British amateur golfers was played at Hoylake in 1921, immediately before the Amateur Championship. This match was followed by the creation of the Walker Cup, which was first played in 1922. However, the 1921 Gleneagles match did not immediately lead to a corresponding match between the professionals. It was common at this time for a small number of professionals to travel to compete in each other's national championship. In 1926, a larger than usual contingent of American professionals were traveling to Britain to compete in the Open Championship, 2 weeks before their own championship. In February it was announced that Walter Hagen would select a team of 4 American professionals to play 4 British professionals in a match before the Open Championship. The match would be a stroke play competition with each playing the 4 opposing golfers over 18 holes. In mid-April it was announced that a golf enthusiast, whose name has not yet been made public, was ready to donate a cup for an annual competition. Later in April it was announced that Samuel Ryder would be presenting a trophy for annual competition between British and American professionals, with the first match to be played on June 4 and 5, but the details are not yet decided. And then in May it was announced that the match would be a match play competition, 8-a-side, foursomes on the first day, singles on the second. Eventually, at Hagen's request, 10 players competed for each team. Samuel Ryder had sponsored a number of British professional events starting in 1923. The match resulted in 13-1 victory for the British team. The American point was won by Bill Melhorn, with Emmett French being all square. Medals were presented to the players by the American ambassador Alanson B. Houghton. The match was widely reported as being for the Ryder Cup. However, Golf Illustrated for June 11 states that because of uncertainty following the general strike in May, which led to uncertainty about how many Americans would be visiting Britain, Samuel Ryder had decided to withhold the Cup for a year. It has also been suggested that the fact that the Ryder Cup itself may not have been in existence at the time that Walter Hagen chose the American team rather than the American PGA, that only those Americans who had traveled to Britain to play in the Open were available for selection, and that it contained a number of players born outside the United States, also contributed to the feeling that the match ought to be regarded as unofficial. In addition, the Americans had only just landed in England and were not yet in full practice. The British team was Ted Ray, Aubrey Boomer, Archie Compston, George Duncan, George Gadd, Arthur Havers, Herbert Jolly, Abe Mitchell, Fred Robson and Ernest Whitcomb. The American team was Walter Hagen, Tommy Armour, Jim Barnes, Emmett French, Joe Kirkwood, Fred McLeod, Bill Melhorn, Joe Stein, Cyril Walker and Al Watrous. While all 10 of the British players subsequently played in the Ryder Cup, only 3 of the Americans did. Armour, Barnes, Kirkwood, McLeod and Walker were excluded by the policy of requiring players to be born in the USA, while French and Stein were never selected. Worcester 1927. The 1927 competition was organized on a much more formal basis. A Ryder Cup deed of trust was drawn up formalizing the rules of the contest, while each of the PGA organizations had a selection process. In Britain, Golf Illustrated launched a fund to raise £3,000 to fund professional golfers to play in the US Open and the Ryder Cup. Ryder contributed £100, and, when the fund closed with a shortfall of £300, he made up the outstanding balance himself. Although not in the rules at the time, the American PGA restricted the team to those born in the United States. In early 1928 it became clear that an annual contest was not practical, and so it was decided that the second contest should be in 1929 and then every 2 years thereafter. For the 1929 UK contest at Moortown GC, Leeds, the American PGA again restricted the team to those born in the USA, but in late 1929 the deed of trust was revised, requiring all players to be born in and resident in the respective countries, as well as being members of the respective Professional Golfers Association. Inclusion of continental European golfers. The most significant change to the Ryder Cup has been the inclusion of continental European golfers since 1979. Up until 1977, the matches featured teams representing the United States and Great Britain and Ireland. From 1979, players from continental Europe have been eligible to join what is now known as Team Europe. The change to include continental Europeans arose from discussion in 1977 between Jack Nicklaus and the Earl of Derby, who was serving as the president of the Professional Golfers Association. It was suggested by Nicklaus as a means to make the matches more competitive, since the Americans almost always won, often by lopsided margins. The change worked, as the contests immediately became much more competitive, with talented young Europeans such as Sev Ballesteros and Bernhard Langer bolstering the European side. The present-day popularity of the Ryder Cup, which now generates enormous media attention, can be said to date from the change in eligibility format. The Ryder Cup involves various match play competitions between players selected from 2 teams of 12. It takes place from a Friday to a Sunday, with a total of 28 matches being played, all matches being over 18 holes. On Friday and Saturday there are 4 four-ball matches and 4 foursomes matches each day, a session of 4 matches in the morning and a session of 4 matches in the afternoon. On Sunday, there are 12 singles matches, when all team members play. Not all players must play on Friday and Saturday. The captain can select any 8 players for each of the sessions over these 2 days. The winner of each match scores a point for his team, with half a point each for any match that is tied after the 18 holes. The winning team is determined by cumulative total points. In the event of a tie, the Ryder Cup is retained by the team who held it before the contest. A foursomes match is a competition between 2 teams of 2 golfers. On a particular hole, the golfers on the same team take alternate shots playing the same ball. One team member tees off on all the odd-numbered holes, and the other on all the even-numbered holes. Each hole is won by the team that completes the hole in the fewest shots. A 4-ball match is also a competition between 2 teams of 2 golfers, but all 4 golfers play their own ball throughout the round rather than alternating shots. The better score of the 2 golfers in a team determines the team's score on a particular hole. The score of the other member of the team is not counted. Each hole is won by the team whose individual golfer has the lowest score. A singles match is a standard match play competition between 2 golfers. The format of the Ryder Cup has changed over the years. From the inaugural event until 1959, the Ryder Cup was a 2-day competition with 36-hole matches. In 1961, the matches were changed to 18 holes each and the number of matches doubled. In 1963, the event was expanded to 3 days, with 4-ball matches being played for the first time. This format remained until 1977, when the number of matches was reduced to 20, but in 1979, the first year continental European players participated, the format was changed to the 28-match version in use today, with 8 foursomes, 4-ball matches on the first 2 days and 12 singles matches on the last day. There were 2 singles sessions in 1979, but no player played in both sessions. Since 1979, there have been 4 foursomes and 4 4-balls on each of the first 2 days. Currently, the home captain decides before the contest starts whether the 4-ball or foursomes matches are played in the morning. He may choose a different order for the 2 days. Since 1979, a player can play a maximum of 5 matches. However, from 1963 to 1975, it was possible to play 6 matches. The team size was increased from 10 to 12 in 1969. A minor variation of the format was used in 2010 due to weather disruption. Following the opening session of 4 4-balls, heavy rain prevented the afternoon foursomes from being played. The captains agreed that the matches that should have constituted the next 3 sessions would now be played over 2. Firstly 6 foursomes matches, then 2 foursomes and 4 4-balls. Thus the overall number and type of matches was retained, although the captains lost a degree of flexibility in the selection, as all players would play in both sessions. In the event, further heavy rain meant the pairs matches were not completed until the end of the 3rd day, so the competition was extended, with all 12 singles being played on an extra day. Team qualification and selection. The selection process for the Ryder Cup players has varied over the years. In the early contests, the teams were generally decided by a selection committee, but later qualification based on performances was introduced. The current system, by which most of the team is determined by performances with a small number of players selected by the captain, gradually evolved, and has been used by both sides since 1989. For the 2014 Ryder Cup, both teams had 9 players qualifying based on performances, with the remaining 3 players selected by the captain. For those players gaining automatic qualification, the Europeans used a system introduced in 2004, using two tables, one using prize money, one in official European Tour events, and a second based on world ranking points gained anywhere in the world. Both tables used a 12-month qualifying period finishing at the end of August. The American system, introduced in 2008, was based on prize money earned in official PGA Tour events during the current season and prize money earned in the major championships in the previous season. The qualifying period ended after the PGA Championship. Captains. One of the roles of the captain has always been to select who plays in each group of matches and to decide the playing order. While the contest involved 36 holes matches, it was usual for the captain to be one of the players. The USA only had two non-playing captains in this period, Walter Hagen in 1937 and Ben Hogan in 1949, while Great Britain had non-playing captains in 1933, 1949, 1951 and 1953. With the change to 18-hole matches and the extension to 3 days, it became more difficult to combine the roles of captain and player, and Arnold Palmer in 1963 was the last playing captain. The captains have always been professional golfers, and the only captain who has never played in the Ryder Cup is J. H. Taylor, a 1933 British captain.